Happy Monday, everybody. It is After Action Report, your numbers recap show for all Schmoedown matches to get you caught up on all the action. I'm your host, Megs, and joining me, as always, the lovely Mr. Nat. And today we're going to be going over all the matches from this past week, including that pay-per-view. So if you have not watched it as you are a $10 patron, or you didn't get tickets through the schmoedownlive.com, you might want to duck out most of the way through, but I will go ahead and give you, this is your official spoiler warning for the pay-per-view. Nat, we had some crazy things happen this week.
Yeah, we had some pretty interesting stuff happen that I can't wait to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So referencing the title that we have for this week, that being Wheel's Choice. We will kind of be breaking down a little bit more about what that means as we get down, but all the matches that we saw this week, we had Elliot Dewberry going up against Video Drew, and we also had Rick Radis and Christy V, our two new rookies coming in for this week, and then Paul Preston and James White, and Battlefield, our first time getting to see the Battlefield pay-per-view event, starting off with Liz Shannon Miller and John Roca in the undercard, and the main event, Ben Bateman versus Mark Riley. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this first match of the week that dropped early for patrons, which was Dewberry versus Video Drew, where we actually saw them tied at 6 going into round 2, both missing the same 2 questions inside of round 1. Where Dewberry defers to Video Drew in this second round, and she takes 1990s on the first spin. She's able to come out with 4 out of 8 points. Dewberry spins Spinner's Choice, first one of the week. Again, we'll talk more about that later. And he decides to take Paul Thomas Anderson, where he comes out with only 3 out of 8 points. Video Drew gives up a 2-point steal that Dewberry can capitalize on, and Dewberry gives up a 2-point and a 1-point steal, Video Drew only being able to capitalize on the 2-point steal, which puts them at Video Drew with a 1-point lead going into round 3 at 12-11, where Dewberry and Video Drew go back and forth with their 2 and their 3-pointers, Dewberry getting a 2 and 3-pointer in 90s and fantasy sci-fi respectively, and Video Drew getting hers in musicals and 1980s. Dewberry is unable to answer a 5-pointer in horror, which gives Video Drew the win with a final score of 16-17, where Elliot Dewberry answered 11 of 16 questions for 67% accuracy and scored 55% of 29 available points. Respectively, Video Drew answered 12 of 16 questions for 75% accuracy and scored 68% of 25 available points. This is, again, another example, referring back to some discussions that we had a couple weeks ago, that getting Spinner's Choice does not necessarily solidify a win, as we saw the case with Dewberry here, and as we shall see later on during the week. Nat, did you have anything really that stuck out to you from this match? It was a fairly straightforward match. It was nice to see Video Drew get this win based on where she's at in her career, but anything stick out to you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy that Video Drew won. I'm a big fan of hers, and I feel like she's one of those competitors who's just going to keep getting better. I will say I'm very surprised at how Dewberry did during his round 2, because he got Spinner's Choice, and it was a category that's very studyable. Like Paul Thomas Anderson is a very finite category to have. So I don't know if it was just the difficulty of those questions. If they went a different way, I think he could have done better. I think Elliot Dewberry is better than people think he is. I remember years ago when he was playing Mark Riley in the tournament, everyone had Riley to win. And I was like, I'm not so sure, because I think you're discounting Elliot Dewberry. He's actually very good. I think this match doesn't showcase how good he is. I think he just got kind of unlucky with the questions, even though he did get Spinner's Choice. I just think the questions didn't go his way. So yeah, this match pretty much went how I expected it to, but I think both of these competitors are on the rise.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Dewberry has had his kind of ups and downs as far as single play goes. So I think this doesn't necessarily destroy his chances of going on another run or being able to do well in a tournament. I think just, again, the way things fell. And yeah, those Paul Thomas Anderson questions just could have fell just a little bit outside of his wheelhouse, even though he does feel like he knows that category very well. And Paul Thomas Anderson questions may just be getting a little bit tougher because it's gotten used a handful of times now. So that's always the risk you run with a specific category. The more it gets used, the deeper sometimes those questions get. But we'll go ahead. What was that?
I said absolutely.
Yes. So we are going to go ahead and shift over to our rookie match of the week, where we had the debut of Rick the Rager Radis and Christy V. The Spin Stock Exchange and the Stars, respectively. Excellent choices. These guys perfectly fit with their managers as far as gameplay and their interaction with each other. I found that lovely to watch. But as we got into the match itself, we saw them tied at 5, going into round 2, where Radis decides to spin first. He spins away from romantic comedies, but ends up with Jennifer Lopez, where he comes out with 6 out of 8 points, still very respectable. And Christy V spins away from Robert Redford, ends up on opponent's choice, where she is given horror. This is where things kind of take a turn. She is only able to come out with 3 out of 8 points, giving up 2 1-point steals, giving Radis the lead by 5, 13-8 going into this third round, where Christy is able to get her 2-pointer in action adventure, but misses a 3 and 5-pointer in dramas and Tom Hanks, giving Rick Radis a win by TKO with a final score of 13-10, where Rick Radis answered 11 of 14 questions for 79% accuracy and scored 68% of 19 available points, where Christy V answered 8 of 15 questions for 53% accuracy and scored 37% of 27 available points. Again, I loved these two as characters and the way they interact and the way they mesh with their managers. They're both excellent fits for where they're at. As far as Christy goes, I think things just didn't quite break her way with those questions. Horror can definitely be a tough category if that's not something you're very strong in, and Radis took advantage of that opportunity and did very well with that.
Yeah, like you said, I really love how these two just fit in their factions. I really like how the Finstock Exchanges is like this roster full of these crazy over the top characters that I think Rick the Rager Radis just fits in so perfectly. I could not imagine him with a different faction. I think it's kind of hard to assess two rookies in their debut matches. I think, especially since Christy got opponent's choice and she got a really tough category. But I will say I'm very impressed with Rick the Rager Radis. I think he did really well, especially considering it was his first match ever. And Christy V, I think she was also impressive. I think even though she had a loss, she did get opponent's choice, and that severely impacted her. I'm looking forward to seeing how she does in her second match. I don't know who I would give her yet, but I'm looking forward to see how she does when she doesn't get opponent's choice.
Absolutely. And I think as far as that round 1, I think for anybody coming into a new situation, a new setting, there could have been a little bit of first time nerves, throwing her mentality off there in that first round, but she stuck with it. And I was really impressed in those horror questions. She checked down to multiple choice to basically limit the damage to give her an opportunity to get into that third round. Because if she hadn't checked down to multiple choice and gotten into a scramble situation to try and beat him out, we could have been looking at a KO situation as well. So
I will also say that I'm very impressed that Rick and Finstock knew to give her horror. Like these two have clearly done their research on Christy V. So I commend them for that.
Absolutely. I don't tend to give Gucci too much credit, but that was smart. All right, let's shift over to our first match on Friday that just dropped straight to YouTube. We're not to pay-per-view yet, but this was Paul the Powder Keg Preston against James the Jet White, new moniker for him this season. Things start out pretty tight. We are tied at 9 in round 1, both getting perfect rounds plus the bonus. where Preston decides to spin first. He takes Emily Blunt on his first spin, coming out with 6 out of 8 points, where James White spins away from 1970s and still ends up with 1970s, where he manages to come out of that with 4 out of 8 points. And so that gives, and they both end up giving up 1 point steals. James White giving up 2 of them, Preston only giving up 1, which puts Preston up by 3, 17-14, going into round 3. Again, it's a kind of a bounce back and forth here with James White answering 2-pointer in Tom Cruise, Preston 2-pointer in thrillers, bounces over to White to answer a 3-pointer in sports. Preston gets a 3-pointer in DiCaprio. White is unfortunately unable to hit a 5-pointer in musicals, which does give the Preston the win with 22-19, where Preston answered 16 of 17 questions for 94% accuracy, scored 92% of 24 available points, where James White was able to answer 14 of 17 questions, for 82% accuracy and scored 68% of 28 available points. So aside from that 5-pointer, things were relatively tight the entire match, both putting up some fairly impressive numbers there. And I couldn't necessarily pick between these two. I think both of these guys have been kind of on the cusp of elevating the game to that next level. What were your thoughts?
So I did have Paul Preston coming into this match, but I will be the first to admit that I overlooked James White. I mean, first of all, Paul Preston, oh my God, 94%. How would you not be impressed with that? I think that Paul Preston is coming off of a season where I wouldn't say underperformed, but it didn't go his way most of the time. So I'm very excited to see that he is back to his winning ways, so to speak. I think he's way more impressive than people give him credit for. He went perfect round 1. I mean, the stats speak for themselves. I think he's going to go on a run, and this could be the season where he turns it around. Speaking on James White, I think he kind of had a lackluster season last year. He didn't live up to his first pick potential, and I think he got drafted. I think Shannon got him at such a great value for where he was drafted because he's clearly improved his game. And this match was so much closer than I thought it'd be. I think I'm excited for his future.
Yeah, absolutely. James White had kind of an up and down where he was not super impressive in his first showing, but then he kind of came to play in the tournament, which just unfortunately he was against Bibiani as a play-in match. Or not as a play-in, but he got in as a play-in and then came up against Bibiani in his first match, which is tough for any competitor. So I think he definitely is coming back strong, even though he ended up not with a win. I think he is still showing that he has that potential and shouldn't be getting overlooked by people for sure. And like I said, aside from the 5-point miss, which really brought down his potential points earned, 82% in a match is nothing to sneeze at all. So
yeah, very impressive.
Yes. All right, guys, final warning. I'm going to jump into the pay-per-view matches. If you had not seen them, get out while you can.
Get out of here.
What are you doing still here? All right, the undercard. Again, these undercards could be main events themselves. Lightning Liz Shannon Miller against John the Outlaw Roca. And again, we're going to be hitting kind of a similar stride here. These two are tied at 9, coming out of round 1. Perfect rounds plus bonuses. Was not incredibly impressed or surprised by this, but definitely impressive to be sure. Roca elects to spin first here in the second round, spins away from romantic comedies, ends up with Spinner's Choice, where he takes sports, and sweeps the round with a total 8 for 8. Miller spins Spinner's Choice on her first spin and decides to take DreamWorks Animation. She is only able to take 4 out of 8 points, giving up a 1 point in steals. She gives up a 1 point on multiple choice and a 2-point steal opportunity that Roca is not able to capitalize on. So where now Roca is up by 5 13-18 going into this final round, where Liz Shannon Miller is able to hit a 2-pointer in 1980s, but misses a 3-pointer in coming of age and a 5-pointer in animated, which gives Roca the win via TKO, 18-15, where we saw that Roca was able to answer, Liz Shannon Miller was able to answer 12 of 16 questions for 75% accuracy and score 56% of 27 available points, where Roca answered 14 of 15 questions for 93% accuracy and 90% of 20 available points. Oh my. The first of our double spinner's choice for the night. I think, Nat, you and I were talking about this in the pre-game, just very strange and unfortunate that Liz Shannon Miller taking DreamWorks Animation just did not go her way at all.
Yeah. So I am shocked that this was a TKO. First of all, it was a TKO in Roca's favor, but I actually picked Liz to win, and I was completely wrong. This is the dominant Roca of old. I think that he played his spinner's choice perfectly by choosing a category that he could just clean up. And Liz, unfortunately, the category did not go her way in DreamWorks. That's just how it goes sometimes. I think she's better than this performance, but it's still not to take anything away from Roca. I think Roca played lights out.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I was not expecting it to be via TKO at all. I figured it was going to be a very close match. But yeah, the fact that DreamWorks, whether she thought she was prepared and realized she wasn't, or she was prepared in everything but a couple of those questions. I feel like in her 2-point question that she missed, that might have been a little bit of a getting ahead of yourself, answering maybe a little bit too quickly, not taking your time, because she knew from the challenge that subsequently came, she knew the answer. She just said the wrong thing initially, and it ended up becoming a whole snafu of a challenge situation, which we won't dive into specifically. If you guys want more information on kind of the ins and outs of what happened during the match, kayfabe, cutscenes, all that stuff, check out Call Live that happens on Saturdays, pretty much every Saturday. And you'll also get some really neat fantasy updates from this guy down here.
I'm pretty good at those. I will say that I started speaking and I completely forgot my point. So continue, Megs.
Yeah, so just the idea that I feel like Liz Shannon Miller is still a very knowledgeable player. I think she still needs to work on some of the aspects of the game itself.
I remember now. I was going to talk about the Kung Fu Panda snafu. I think that kind of mistake gets patched up with experience. I think this was just, she's not really a newcomer. She's played a couple of seasons, but I think that as you play more like Roca has, those kind of mistakes just get fixed and you don't make them anymore. You have to remember to think about the question before you answer it. You can't just like blurt out an answer. I think that's something that Sam Levine should work with Liz Shannon Miller to fix. And once they do, then the sky's the limit.
Absolutely. So definitely a little bit of an unfortunate showing there for Liz, but definitely not something that's going to spell an end to her career at all. We certainly have not seen the last of her. We will certainly be seeing her in the upcoming teams tournament. And I wanted to quick highlight here. Happy birthday again to the director, Alan Smithy. Ryan, great seeing you here. Thanks for popping in to say hi.
Happy birthday to the director. I love that guy.
Yeah. We very much appreciate him over here. So now to our main event for the evening. We have Ben, the Boss Bateman, versus Mark Yodi Riley. Slight bias being an action podcast, but definitely both of these competitors could very easily have come out with the win here based on, and they both know each other so well as being former teammates. But how things shook out here, we had Bateman being up by 7-6 going into round 2, just missing out on the perfect round on that last question, where Bateman defers to Riley, who spins Spinner's Choice and takes Superman, one of the newer IG categories available this year, and sweeps the category 8 for 8. Bateman also spins Spinner's Choice, does not spin again. If you don't know that reference, check out the Houston Live episode or match from 2019. It is a treat. But he does end up taking Tyler Perry and sweeping that round for 8-8, which has him being up still by 1 going into this final round, where Riley misses a 2-pointer in biopics. It goes down to his 3-pointer, where he hits a 2 in romantic comedies. Bateman hits a 2 in disaster movies and a 3-pointer in Disney, which puts him ahead again and bounces it back over to Riley for a 5-pointer in remakes and reboots. He's unfortunately unable to capitalize on that, giving Bateman the win 20-17, where Bateman answered 13 of 14 questions for 93% accuracy and scored 91% of 22 available points. Mark Riley answered 11 of 15 questions for 73% accuracy and scored 63% of 27 available points. So, again, tight game, both of them capitalizing very well on their Spinner's Choices, being able to sweep both of their categories, which is what you would like to see from players of this caliber when they're given that opportunity to take Spinner's Choice. They have those categories that they want on lock. That is definitely the ideal situation that you want. Anything stand out here for you, Nat?
I will say that we are a team action podcast, but team action's dead. All right. I am only team guy, and I will not be afraid to say that I was rooting for Mark Riley just for storyline purposes. Because how could you root against Mark Riley, you know? But Ben Bateman's going to Ben Bateman. He does what he does. I'm very impressed by Mark Riley. I think people should stop counting him out because he's still clearly one of the best. But Ben Bateman is just on another level. Like it's crazy to me. If you watch Call Live, he mentions his thought process with choosing Tyler Perry. Mm-hmm. Like he said, he can only choose it one more time before it gets so much deeper than it is. Mm-hmm. And so people know that it's a strength. And he was willing to burn it on Riley. So he's one of the most strategic players in the game. And it's no surprise that he played this perfectly. I'm very impressed by Mark Riley going perfect in round 2. Like it's so fitting that he did that with his category Superman. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's just a great match. I really hope that Mark Riley gets a win in his next match, but it was just a great match.
It was, and and again, speaking of, Bateman is a strategic player to the 9. He will strategize, game whatever he feels he can get away with to get an edge on his competitor. That is what's available to him in this game, and he takes advantage of that. But Mark Riley also has been around for some time and is very good in his own right. He went extremely far. He was in the, I believe, semifinals of last year's tournament. And out of a 36-person tournament, that is nothing to scoff at all. So I think we definitely have not seen the last of Riley. But on this day, he faced the boss on his best day. And what can you do against that?
What can you do?
What can you do? But another topic, we are done with the matches, but something that I wanted to highlight here, again, Wheels Choice. We saw quite a few Spinner's Choices this week specifically. Out of the 10 competitors that competed, 50% of the competitors ended up with Spinner's Choice either on their first spin or spinning away from another category and ending up with Spinner's Choice. So a little history on Spinner's Choice within the league. In singles, we have had Spinner's Choice be a factor in 36 of 67 matches, so about 20%, where in 2018 was the last time that we saw a double spinner's choice, and that was actually Bateman versus Andraco. And this year alone, which that's actually 2021, apologies for that, we have had double spinner's choices twice, and been in this week. So very interesting, just from a statistical standpoint. Digital wheel being what it is, the algorithm goes through its cycles, and occasionally, if you're doing coin flips, you get a string of heads every once in a while, and that's what we're seeing here. In teams, it's about 18%, 17 of 94 matches, and in IG, 12 of 65 matches, again, about 18%. Star Wars, it's only happened once, but we also just recently introduced Spinner's Choice onto the Star Wars wheel, so that's a little bit of an outlier there. But about, in that 18 to 20% range since the 2018 season, we've been seeing Spinner's Choice make an appearance on the wheel, which, considering it is on just about every wheel except for certain championship matches, it about makes sense. It just happens to be that this week we saw a rash chain of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy to me. Like, we saw 4 in a row in the same night. That just doesn't happen. I don't think that would happen with the physical wheel. I think that's just how the algorithm falls with the digital wheel. And there's not really anything you can do about it. That's just life during.
Yeah, it is what it is. We're not calling it a suspect. It happens.
I mean, we're not gonna they're not gonna give every competitor their own physical wheel. Like, that's not realistic. That's just the way things are. So it's interesting, but there's not much you can do about it.
Yeah. Quick shout, Jesse Swift. Nice to see you.
Jesse Swift's on my fantasy team, and he's gonna give me some points.
Oh, very good. Good to know. All right. Weston, I always had your, with the digital wheel, you again are adding in some more variants in there that could make them a little bit more likely. But again, we're not calling foul on it at all. Just something that we noticed as a pattern for this week. But that's going to be it for this week. Be sure to come back next week. We're going to be recapping all the matches coming from this week. We had our first match drop on Patreon for the $10 and up. Excited to check out that one. Check out Call Live here on the channel for more in-depth talk about the matches, cutscenes, interviews with competitors. We just had Kat and Sunny and Ben Bateman on this last week, so be sure to check those out and all the other great content we have on this channel. Nat, what have you got going on over on your other side of the table there?
Boy. I have a lot of stuff going on. So tomorrow we're on live on Twitch right there, twitch.tv/call-to-action. We will be going live at 6 Pacific. And let me tell you, screen just freeze. That's weird.
I'll say, and let me tell you what, that's the last thing I heard.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be a really packed show. I think there's like 5 or 6 of us from the crew on Twitch tomorrow. So it's going to be a great show. Please check that out. If you can't check in live, you don't like Twitch for whatever reason, you can join our Patreon right there, and you will get the VODs on YouTube like 24 hours later, because there's weird rules with Twitch where if you're an affiliate, you can't post it somewhere else, but whatever. You can also find my fantasy update segment on Call Live towards the end. If you don't want to watch for 4 hours, just skip to the end, watch my part. We get to use it either way. So, and also we are bringing back AAA Live for one special episode. Me, Dylan, Megs, we are going to be breaking down whoever Ferris wants, because he just gifted us a bunch of subs. So if you want your own AAA Live episode dedicated to you, just gift us a bunch of subs, and we will appreciate it. We're bringing it back. I think we haven't confirmed it yet, but the goal is for next Thursday after the following Thursday. So the 8th of April is when we're bringing it back.
So not this week, but next week. Yes. So super excited to get to bring that back for, if not just one episode. It was kind of the show that started it all for me specifically. So kind of fun to get to jump back into that. Wanted to address this real quick. Those spinner choices were with other first spins in between, were they not? Some of them, yes. Some of them were on the first spin they got spinner's choice. I don't have that broken out specifically, but in total, a competitor that ended up with spinner's choice as their wheel spin, whether by first or by second. That was what I was counting. Unless you're talking about Ben Bateman in Houston, usually it's either the first spin or the second spin is when you first get spinner's choice, unless you are crazy and decide to spin again.
I don't
But
like
that is a whole nother conversation for another time. Very entertaining, to say the least. But again, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel to be kept up to date on everything that's happening here on this channel. We like hearing from you guys, like seeing things that you enjoy, things that you'd like to see in the future. But till next time, I'm Eggs for Nat and the rest of the C2A crew. This has been After Action Report, signing off.